She had one rule left: don't let them see you shake. Maya Reyes had been a waitress at the Empire Room for 9 weeks. She knew every table, every section, every regular, who tipped too much to feel generous, and everyone who tipped too little to feel powerful. She knew how to smile through a double shift when her lower back felt like someone had pressed a hot iron against it. She knew how to carry a full tray when her hands would not stop trembling. She knew how to make herself invisible in a room full of people who would never once wonder how she got there. What she did not know, what she could not have known, was that table 7 had just been seated, and that the man sitting at it used to wake before sunrise just to watch her sleep. Like he was memorizing something he was sure he would never have to lose. The Empire Room at 8 on a Thursday looked like money rehearsing itself for an audience. Candles on every table that cost more than what Maya made in an hour. The kind of place where the menu had no prices. The music stayed 3 notes below hearing, and the guests arrived already certain that they belonged. Maya belonged the way she always had, through precision, not permission. She was refilling a glass at table 4 when the front doors opened. She did not look up. She had trained herself not to look up at entrances anymore. It cost too much. The host's voice changed first. That was always how you knew. It dropped half a register and added a careful warmth, the specific tone saved for guests who did not need to be impressed, only obeyed. Maya had heard it twice in 9 weeks. She heard it now. She finished the pour. She set the pitcher down. She turned. Adrian Vale was exactly as she remembered him. That was the cruelest part. She had spent 8 months building a smaller version of him in her memory, one with edges she could see past, one she could almost believe she had only imagined loving. Then he walked into her section in a charcoal suit with his collar open, and every wall she had built came down in the space of a single breath. He had not seen her yet. Then the host led him to table 7, the corner booth, the best seat in her section. And Adrian looked up at the exact moment she arrived. Not a second before, not a second after, as if he had known where she stood in the room the entire time. His eyes dropped to her stomach for exactly 1 second, then back to her face. 1 second was enough. She kept her voice flat and asked if she could start him with something to drink. She did not make it a question. He said her name. Just that. Her name, the way he said it, like it carried a weight he had been saving. For the moment, she stood 3 feet away with nowhere left to go. She told him she would send someone else. He told her, in a voice that never once rose, that he was not going anywhere tonight. If you have ever had to hold yourself together in a room that had no reason to be kind to you, then you already understand Maya. You know what it costs to keep your hands steady when your whole world is shaking. This story is for you. So before she turns back to that table, do one thing for her and for yourself. Tap subscribe. Stay with her until the end, because what happened next changed everything. Here is the question I want you to sit with as this unfolds. Was that love, or was it something he could not let go of? Her manager found her in the wine cellar, not hiding, rearranging a shelf that did not need rearranging, because it gave her hands something to do, and her face somewhere to be that was not the dining room. He told her table 7 had asked for her by name. She told him to send someone else. He held out a black card instead. Matte, no logo, just a number on the front. On the back, in small clean print, a name she did not let herself read before she slipped it into her apron pocket. She would look at it later. She would not look at it later. She told him she would take the table. He asked if she was sure. She said she was. She was not. But uncertainty was a luxury she had stopped affording herself. Around the time she realized the man who had built a world around her had taken it apart in a single morning, and that she would have to decide what to do about that alone. Then the baby moved, low and certain, the way it had started doing 2 weeks ago. Like a reminder that alone was no longer the right word. She walked back to table 7. His companions had drifted toward the bar. The table now had the specific silence of a conversation cleared of witnesses. She asked if he was ready to order. He asked how long she had been working there. She asked if he was ordering or interviewing her. He said both, She told him 9 weeks. He asked about before. She said before was not his business. He said it was, once. The sentence landed exactly the way he meant it to, not as an accusation, as a fact. The kind of fact a man states only after carrying it a long time. He told her to look at him. She looked. And there it was, the expression she had spent 8 months trying to forget and had not managed to lose. Not the public face. The other one. The one that looked at her like she was something he had no category for. He asked her, quietly, to tell him she was all right. She had the answer ready. 8 months of practice. What came out instead was nothing, because her throat refused her. She wrote his order down. She walked away. The card stayed in her pocket. The beginning of something is never where people think it starts. Maya had met Adrian Vale 2 years earlier, at a private gallery opening she had been hired to run. She had done her job. Precise. Invisible. Professional. Then a man in a dark suit stopped beside her and said very quietly that she moved like someone who already knew where every exit was. She told him that was the job. He said no. Most people doing the job moved like they hoped to be noticed. She moved like she had already counted everyone in the room and decided who mattered. She had looked at him then. Really looked. Adrian Vale, she would learn, was the kind of man who made a room rearrange itself without doing anything to cause it. Not loud, not performing. Simply present in a way most people spent their whole lives failing to be. She told herself to be careful. She was careful, right up until the moment she was not. They married within a year. And for a while, she learned the private version of the most guarded man in New York. That he made his own coffee every morning because he trusted no one else with the ratio. That he went completely still when he was thinking hard, like a man who had learned young that the safest place in any room was the one where you did not move. That he looked at her, only her, like someone rediscovering something he had long stopped expecting. Then one morning she woke and he was gone. On the marble counter sat a folder. Separation papers already signed. He walked in from the terrace, looked at the folder, then at her, and she saw it in his face for one undefended second. A decision already made. He said there were things she did not understand, things his family required, people who would use her to reach him. She had not cried. She had not raised her voice. She had put her hands flat on the counter and said one word. Okay. Because she came from a place where dignity was never given to you. You carried it yourself, or you did not have it at all. She found out she was pregnant 3 weeks later. She thought about telling him every single day for 8 months. She never did. He was still at table 7 when her shift ended. 3 hours, 2 courses, 4 glasses of water he never touched. So when she clocked out and slipped through the staff exit into the cold, she was not surprised to find him waiting in the alley. She told him this was called leaving through the back, and also called none of his business. He said it was freezing and asked how far the train was. She said 20 minutes. He said he would drive her. She said he would not. He fell into step beside her anyway, not touching, just present, occupying that exact space between intrusion and invitation he had always known how to hold. He asked how long she had known. She did not pretend to misunderstand. She said, long enough. He said that was not a number. She said no, it was not. They walked half a block in silence before she finally asked the question. How did he know she worked there? He said he had known for 3 weeks. She stopped walking. She asked if tonight was an accident. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said no. He had known exactly where she would be. He had simply run out of patience for staying away. It was the most honest thing he had ever said to her, and she hated how much it landed. So let me ask you something before we go further. A man searches for 8 months. He finds her, then waits 3 more weeks just to walk through a door. Is that love? Or is it something a man like that simply refuses to lose? Tell me in the comments. I am reading every single one. 3 days later, a woman named Celeste Lang walked into the Empire room. Maya knew who she was the way you know a storm before it arrives, by the way the room changes shape around it. The host, the staff, a particular quality of attention that was not admiration and was not fear, but lived somewhere between them. Celeste was beautiful the way things built for a purpose are beautiful. Precise, expensive, correct in every detail. She sat at table 7, Adrian's table, and she waited with the patience of a woman who had never once wondered whether the person she was waiting for would appear. Maya served her, because dignity was a practice, not a feeling. Celeste looked up and said Maya was the one. No preamble. The way a person says a thing they have known too long to keep holding. She said she had always known there was someone before the families arranged everything. She had simply never known who, until now. Maya set the glass down and said she thought there was some confusion. Celeste said there was not. She said Adrian had said Maya's name once, in his sleep, 3 weeks after they were formally introduced. Then, she said the thing that stilled the air completely. She said she was not there to threaten her. She wanted that understood. She was there because the arrangement between their families was never the same thing as what Adrian actually wanted, and she had grown tired of pretending otherwise. Then she reached into her bag and placed a card on the table. A personal one. A number. She said if anything ever happened, anything that put Maya at risk, she should call her first, not him. Maya asked why she would ever do that. Celeste paused. She said because she had resources Adrian did not know she had, and because, she said quietly, she was not Maya's enemy in this. Neither of them was. She left and did not look back. Maya stood at the service station for a full minute, doing nothing at all. Then she looked down at the child she carried, and she understood she had no idea what was truly happening. No idea who had decided her life behind closed doors. No idea what the name on that black card in her pocket actually meant, the card she still had not turned over. But she was about to find out. Because what she discovered on the back of it would not only explain why Adrian Vale walked away, it would reveal the secret he had been building for 3 years. The photograph someone left on her kitchen table, and the single name that turned her quiet new life into a target. That is where the story turns. And you do not want to miss where it goes next. He was at her door at 7 in the morning, not the restaurant. Her door. The address she had changed twice in 8 months. She opened it because the alternative was standing on the other side, knowing he was there, which was so worse. She asked how he found her. He said he was the kind of man people called when they needed someone found, and that this should not surprise her. She said it was 7 in the morning. He said he knew. He had been outside since 5, deciding whether coming to the door was the right thing. She stepped back and let him in. Her apartment was small, a sublet she had spent 9 weeks turning into somewhere she had chosen, which was different from somewhere she had ended up. He stood in the center of it and looked at the second-hand shelves she had painted white, the placatings on the sill, the folded baby things on the side table. She had not yet moved to the other room, because moving them made something real she was not ready for. He looked at all of it the way a man memorizes a place he wants to be able to find again. He said he owed her the full truth, and that he would start there. She told him to start. He sat. She remained standing. She needed the height, the small advantage, because in 8 months she had never once found a way to stand in the same room as Adrian Vale and feel level. He told her the arrangement with Celeste's family was never a marriage. It had been written as one on paper, a peace between two empires. But what his board had actually negotiated was a merger, territory, holdings, protection of the family name. He and Celeste were signatures, not a couple. He said he had believed he could end things with Maya cleanly, shielded her from everything attached to him, and buy the time to take the arrangement apart from the inside. She said so. He decided what she could survive without ever asking her. He said yes. She said it was the most arrogant thing anyone had ever done to her while calling it protection. He said yes again. He did not defend himself. That, more than anything, undid her a little. He looked at the folded things on the table. He said he was not asking her to forgive him today. He was asking her to let him be here. She said he was already here. He said he meant after. When the baby came, he wanted to be in the room. She heard the want in it, bare and unguarded, and had to look away before it reached her. The danger came quietly, the way it always does when it already knows your address. 3 days later, Maya came home to find her door unlocked. She had locked it. She was certain of it, the way you are certain of the small things you do by habit, and then question forever afterward. Inside, nothing was obviously moved. But on her kitchen table sat a photograph. Her and Adrian 2 years ago, outside the gallery the night they met. Someone had been there. Someone had been watching from the very beginning. On the back, in handwriting she did not recognize, 4 words. Ask him about Crane. She did not know the name. Her hands were steady, which surprised her, as she took a photo of the photo and sent it to the only number that felt like it might mean something. She sent it to Celeste. The phone rang back within 30 seconds. Celeste asked where she was and whether she was still in the apartment. Maya said yes. Celeste told her to leave. Now. Take nothing but her phone and her keys. She would explain once Maya was on the street. Maya asked who Crane Rain was. There was a pause that lasted a beat too long. Then Celeste said quietly that Victor Crane was a man Adrian had once helped expose. A man who had spent years hunting the source. Her voice dropped lower. She said Maya was the leverage now. The baby was the leverage. And then she said it one more time, slower. Get out of the apartment. Maya got out. She was 2 blocks away, breathing hard against the cold, when her phone rang again. Adrian. He asked where she was before she could speak. She asked how he already knew something had happened. He said Crane's people had just moved on a location he had been using, which meant they had traced something that led to her. His voice was steady in the particular way of a man working very hard to stay that way. She asked who Crane was. Silence. She said the name again. Another silence, longer, the kind that means the answer exists and is being measured before it is handed over. He told her Crane was a man whose empire he had helped bring down years ago anonymously, and who had been searching for the source ever since. She said so, now Crane believed she knew who that source was. He said no. He said someone inside his own organization had told Crane about her. Someone with access to a photograph from 2 years ago. Someone close. He had a traitor inside his own house, and it had put her in the open. He'd told her what he needed her to do. She said she already knew. She had turned the corner before he finished the sentence, already moving toward the place she would tell him to meet her. She made the decision on her feet, the way she had made every decision for 8 months. Not because she trusted him completely, because she trusted herself to know the difference between a man who had brought danger to her door and a man who was the only one who could pull her out of it. Those were not the same thing. She had learned that distinction the hard way, and it was holding her upright now. He came for her himself, not a car he sent ahead, not his people. Adrian, in person, in 31 minutes, which was not enough time to come from where a man like him should have been at that hour. Which meant he had been close. Which meant he had already been in her neighborhood when she called. Which meant he had been watching the street for some time. She said he had been nearby this whole time. He said yes. Not her windows, the street. The cars that did not move. The patterns that did not belong. He had started the moment he learned, 3 weeks earlier, that Crane had begun moving people toward the city. They were in his car before she let herself ask the only question that still had no answer. She told him she wanted to talk about the card. The black one, from the restaurant. She had never turned it over. Something shifted in his face, recognition layered with something underneath it, the look of a man about to say a thing he had needed to say for a long time. He told her to look at it now. She reached into her coat. The card was still there. She had carried it through 11 days, 3 shifts, one conversation with the woman the world believed he would marry, and 2 mornings with him sitting in her living room. And she had never once turned it over. She turned it over. Below his number, in small, clean print, Adrian Vale, on behalf of the Vale Foundation for Safe Housing. She read it twice. She said it was a charity. He said it was the operational side of something he had been building quietly for 3 years, funded under a different name so it could stand on its own. She asked why he hid it. He was silent for a moment, eyes on the road. Then he told her about his mother, that she had left his father when Adrian was 9, with nothing, no family in this country, nowhere safe to go, that she had spent years in situations he would not describe. He said he had spent a large part of his life making sure that was not someone else's story, if he had the power to prevent it. She looked at the card. She said he had left it on her table at the restaurant. He said yes. She said he had left her a card for a housing foundation. He said he had left her a resource, in case she needed somewhere safe. In case she was in a situation he could help with, without overstepping what she had every right to decide for herself. And there it was. The whole reframe, landing all at once. He had not walked into that restaurant to take her back. He had walked in to make sure she had somewhere to go. And then he had left it entirely up to her whether to use it. She thought about what that cost a man with the power to fill any room, to instead set a card on a table and walk away and wait. She told him she wanted to know what ending the Crane situation actually looked like. He said it looked like testimony that was no longer anonymous. His name attached to it. The thing he should have done years ago, and had not, because he had been afraid of what it would cost the people around him. She said people like his mother. He said people like her. She looked out the window for a long moment. Then she told him to do it, to put his name on the truth. He said her name once, like a question. She said it again. Do it. Stop protecting people from the truth, and then wondering why they cannot trust the version they were handed. A pause. He said that was fair. She said it was more than fair. It was free advice. And for the first time in 8 months, she saw the corner of his mouth move. He almost smiled. She looked away before she could do anything about it. But she did not look far. The Vale estate outside the city was not the fortress she had expected. It was quiet, deliberate, built by a man who had started with nothing and spent 40 years choosing exactly what to place in front of himself. She stayed while his attorneys attached his name to the testimony, and the slow machinery that follows men like Crane began to turn. On the second day, she reorganized the kitchen, because it made no sense. On the third day, she drafted a proposal. He found her at the study desk with 3 pages of notes and the focused expression he knew from the gallery, from the restaurant, from every moment he had watched her assess a room and decide what to do about it. He asked what she was working on. She did not look up. She said it was the foundation, that the intake process had 3 gaps costing him families who qualified but never finished applying, that the public materials read like a government form, so the people who needed help most were the ones least likely to believe it was meant for them. He read the pages. He said it sounded like she wanted to run the operational side. She said she wanted to fix the intake and rewrite the materials, and that what came after depended on things they had not discussed. He asked what things. She set her pen down and looked at him directly, the way she had learned to do in rooms built to make her feel she was taking up too much space. She told him she was not staying in this house because it was safe, and he had offered. He said he'd do. She said she was not taking a position because he felt guilty. He said he knew that too. She nodded slowly. Then she said they were starting from facts. He had made decisions without her, and it cost them 8 months. He had spent those months building something that gave people a choice instead of a rescue. She was very good at what she did, and his foundation needed exactly that. And they were having a daughter in 6 weeks, who would need 2 people who agreed on the truth of things. He was very still. He said those were facts. She said yes. He asked if there was anything in them that told him where they stood. She told him to ask her, in 6 weeks, when she had slept, and the baby was here, and she could think about something other than the intake process. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he sat down across from her, picked up the proposal, and asked her to walk him through the gaps. They worked until midnight. Their daughter came into the world on a Tuesday morning, 6 weeks after her mother reorganized a stranger's kitchen, and decided that starting from facts was the only honest way to begin again. She had a serious expression, and her father's particular stillness, the kind that made the nurses laugh, because they had never seen a newborn look so much like she was already deciding something. Adrian held her in the hospital hallway with the care of a man holding something he knew he did not deserve and intended to spend his life earning. He said nothing for a long time. Then he said she had Maya's eyes. Maya said she had his forehead. He said, "Poor child." And Maya laughed. It was the first time in 8 months she had laughed without catching it first. 3 weeks later, Crane's case moved into federal court. Adrian's testimony, no longer hidden behind silence, closed the last door the man had been holding open. The traitor inside the organization was found, 2 ranks below the inner circle. Someone who had been selling information and discovered too late how expensive that arrangement truly was. The merger with Celeste's family was quietly restructured into what it had always actually been: business and nothing more. Celeste sent exactly one message the week after the birth: a photo of a glass raised in a toast, and the words, "Tell her she is already more interesting than the merger. Call me when she is ready to meet a genuinely excellent godmother." Maya laughed at that too. She was getting better at it. The foundation's new intake materials launched in the new year. 3 weeks after, completed applications had risen by more than 40%. Maya printed the numbers and left them on Adrian's desk without a word. He printed the approval figures and left them on hers. They were still not calling it anything. They were calling it every morning across the same kitchen table. They were calling it her daughter falling asleep on his chest with the efficiency of someone who had already decided where she belonged. One evening in February, he said 6 weeks had come and gone. She said she knew. He said she had told him to ask her in 6 weeks. She said she knew that too. He waited. She looked up from the brief she was revising, at the man across the table, in a house that was his, and was slowly becoming something else, with a daughter asleep upstairs who was the most clarifying thing that had ever happened to her. She told him he still owed her 8 months. He said he knew. She said she intended to collect. He said he knew that too. Under the table, without either of them naming it, his hand found hers. She's let it stay. That was the beginning, not the gallery, not the restaurant, not the alley in the cold. This. 2 people at a kitchen table, both working, one hand holding another. The simplest version of a thing that had been complicated for a very long time. Which is exactly why, 3 weeks later, when Maya found the second card tucked into the lining of her work bag, placed there by someone who should never have had access to it, she understood at once that the simple version was already over. The card had no name on the front. On the back, a single line: "Victor Crane's daughter knows who you are, and she is nothing like her father." Maya sat with it for exactly 60 seconds. Then she carried it to the kitchen doorway where Adrian stood making coffee, and held it up. His face went very still. She asked him to tell her they were not starting over. He looked at the card, then at his daughter asleep against her shoulder, then at her. He said they were not starting over. They were starting forward. So here is what you have to ask yourself before the next chapter. If Crane's daughter is nothing like her father, is she the threat that finally breaks them, or the ally who saves them? She already knows Maya's name. She already knows about the child. And in the next part of this story, she walks through a door no one expected her to find. You cannot afford to miss what she says when she does. The next chapter lives on this channel, and nowhere else.